a lot of information from Giuliani's associate, notes, text messages, emails. His lawyer had been threatening that he's more relevant than people think. What's the buzz?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now putting documents to those threats, to those words from Lev Parnas' lawyer. And Chris, you hit on it. Lev Parnas, a close associate, indicted close associate, maybe former associate now, of Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal lawyer. And his lawyer has long said that he has information related to the impeachment inquiry that he wanted to turn over to House investigators. They have done that, and now we have large portions of that information. Our team is still going through the details right now. But amongst the notes, the emails, the text messages, the WhatsApp messages, a few things early stand out, and I think underscore perhaps most prominently something we heard repeatedly over the course of the House impeachment hearings and from some of the closed-door depositions. This kind of shadow diplomacy that was going on throughout the Trump administration as they attempted to work with the new Ukrainian President Zelensky to oust an ambassador and to perhaps set up a meeting that might help President Trump's political ambitions going into the re-election of 2020. I want to point to a couple things that we've picked up so far. First, there's a handwritten note from Lev Parnas on stationery from the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Vienna, Austria. In that note, he says, quote, get Zelensky to announce that the Biden case will be investigated and, quote, start communicating with Zelensky. That's one handwritten note from Lev Parnas. There's also something that we learned related to a letter, an previously undisclosed letter on May 10th, 2019, from Rudy Giuliani to then President-elect Zelensky. In that letter, he says, quote, in my capacity as personal counsel to President Trump and with his knowledge and consent, I request a meeting with you on this upcoming Monday, May 13th, or Tuesday, May 14th. I will need no more than a half hour of your time. I will be accompanied by my colleague, a distinguished American attorney who is very familiar with this matter. I would also note, Chris, that in that letter, he makes very clear that this request is coming with the permission of President Trump, in Rudy Giuliani's personal capacity as his personal lawyer, but with the president's permission. Chris, again, we're digging through these documents right now, dozens of pages that we're going through, but something to take away here, as you noted up top, the House committee's making very clear they plan on sending this information over to the United States Senate as part of the package of details, a part of the package of research and evidence that they have for the Senate trial that will be transmitted at some point. There's a push right now from House Democrats to be able to include this information, all of these new details, all of this potential new evidence in that trial as they look to prosecute their case against President Trump. Only the third Senate trial on an impeachment trial related to a United States president in U.S. history. Obviously, it would take 67 votes to remove President Trump, something Republicans and Democrats alike over here in the Senate don't believe they're anywhere near. However, this is yet another example of new evidence, new disclosures that Democrats have been pointing to in the wake of the House inquiry, making clear more work needs to be done during the impeachment trial, and perhaps most importantly from the Democratic perspective, witnesses. People need to be brought in to speak, something Democrats have been hammering home over the course of the last couple of weeks, Chris.
Right. A little bit of context and then a question from you. You know, the problem with Parnas is going to be credibility. He's under indictment, but there's an expression in the law, documents don't have a character test. As long as they're seen to be authentic, it really does leapfrog the problem of Parnas's credibility. The documents say what they say. They mean what they mean in context of these contacts and potential transactions. So that's an interesting play, which leads me to the question, who says they'll get into the trial? What are you learning about where Senator McConnell's head is? Because even this is offered up as potential evidence. The only thing that gets in is what McConnell says gets in.
Yeah, so it's interesting you asked that, Chris, is because we've been asking throughout the course of the day, kind of with a hint that this was likely coming, or at least with the knowledge that the House investigators had this in their personal property. And I would note, to what you were saying, House Democrats have been concerned about the idea of, when you're using evidence coming from an indicted individual, how rock solid that has to be in order to present that. They have clearly come to the conclusion that they believe it's valid enough to send over. Now, one of the big questions it's going to be is how it comes over in the package, because the package of evidence that is sent over should reflect the record that House Democrats, House impeachment managers will be presenting on the Senate floor. However, that record is subject to the rules and regulations in the initial resolution that sets forth how the initial stages of the trial are going to form. In 1999, President Bill Clinton's trial, they made clear there would be no additional information outside of what the impeachment managers found in their House investigation. So how that idea jives with what House managers are trying to send over right now is an open question, and one we certainly need the answer to very soon, Chris.
Well, look, I mean, in the law, there'd be a competency exam here. Is this information material? Is it relevant to the investigation? This is not a court of law. Right. But the political problem is what you just outlined, Phil. They had a bite at the apple in the House. They didn't evince this information at that time. Now it's on the Senate's watch, and it's going to be their rules. We'll be learning a lot really quickly. As you look through this stuff, Phil, do me a favor. Get back on the IFB and let the control room know if you have something that's worth talking about right now within the hour. I'll come back to you, okay?
Will do, bud. Thank you.
All right, that's CNN's Phil Mattingly. We just got a whole bunch of information from this name that may be familiar to you now, Lev Parnas, through his attorney. It's been offered up as proof of contacts with Giuliani and others, transactions and requests of action on behalf of the president through Giuliani to this Lev Parnas. What else is in there? Phil Mattingly's looking through it right now. As we learn, we'll bring it to you. Let's now go for reaction to the White House. We got CNN Chief White House Correspondent Jim Acosta. This is significant news about what will surround the discussions of what happens in the trial. What are you hearing?
Chris, this is the reason why White House officials have wanted this process over as quickly as possible. They don't want new surprises like these Lev Parnas documents surfacing at the 11th hour, which appears to be taking place at this very moment. White House officials have been scrambling to limit the potential for damaging revelations at President Trump's upcoming impeachment trial in the Senate. First aides to the president and his allies up on Capitol Hill were pushing the idea of a quick dismissal of the trial, but it looks like that's not going to happen. Now the president's team is hopeful for a trial without any witnesses who could hurt Mr. Trump, but that is very much an open question tonight. With President Trump's impeachment trial fast approaching, aides to the president had been quietly pushing an idea opposed by even some Republicans, killing the whole thing altogether with a vote to dismiss the proceeding.
Whether this thing goes to a full trial, whether it's modified, or whether it's just dismissed out of hand for the sham, illegitimate scam it has become, we will be ready.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is rejecting a quick dismissal. The move could imperil vulnerable Republicans up for re-election, not to mention fly in the face of what the president has said for weeks, that he wants a trial with witnesses.
I'm going to leave it to the Senate, but I'd like to hear the whistleblower. I'd like to hear Shifty Schiff. I'd like to hear Hunter Biden and Joe Biden.
The problem is the president and his allies are threatening to block potentially damaging witnesses, like former National Security Advisor John Bolton, even as a small number of Republican senators want to hear that testimony. Democrats are insisting House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was right to delay sending the articles of impeachment over to the Senate.
Some of the Republicans are now beginning to say, maybe we need witnesses and documents. Had Nancy sent the stuff right over and McConnell moved to dismiss, who knows what would have happened.
Other witnesses want to get in on the act, including Lev Parnas, an indicted associate of the president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. An attorney for Parnas tweeted out this video trolling the president, showing his client in photos with Trump family members with the hashtag #LetLevSpeak. As for Giuliani, a central figure in the administration's alleged scheme to dig up dirt on Joe Biden in Ukraine, he's been pressing Mr. Trump for a spot on the impeachment legal team.
I do what I do best. I try the case. I'd love to try the case.
Would you do it? Are you going to? Or are you telling us you would try the case?
I don't know if anybody would have the courage to give me the case.
But a source close to the White House told CNN the president is never going to have him in the Senate trial, starting with the problem that he's a potential witness. A new potential headache has emerged for the president in Ukraine, as the New York Times is reporting Russian military operatives hacked into Burisma, the energy giant where Biden's son Hunter once served as a company board member. Administration critics say the hacking is proof the Russians are at it again in 2020.
The effort they expended and what they gained in 2016, and we really haven't hammered them that badly, so why not? From their standpoint.
Democrats are still hammering the president over Iran, seizing on reports that Mr. Trump was privately talking up the idea of a military strike on the Iranians during the holidays. Presidential contender Elizabeth Warren is one senator questioning whether guests at President Trump's resort may have obtained confidential market-moving information and had the opportunity to trade defense industry stocks or commodities. Publicly, Mr. Trump was calling for peace.
Do I want to? No. I want to have peace. I like peace. And Iran should want peace more than anybody. So I don't see that happening.
Now, one big potential hiccup posed by the Senate impeachment trial. President Trump is scheduled to deliver his State of the Union address in 3 weeks, but at the moment, White House officials say there are no plans to delay that speech, with one official noting former President Bill Clinton appeared at his 1999 State of the Union during his impeachment trial. President Trump's trial is scheduled to begin as he heads off to the Davos World Economic Forum in Switzerland. The White House says he's still going. By the way, Chris, the president is off to a rally tonight in Milwaukee. That also, of course, is still on. Chris.